Alright folks, today I'm going to explain something I should have explained in class, but we just didn't have time. So it's called Parametric Constraints. So here's a guy talking about it on YouTube, exactly talking about the same class. And as you can see how it's spelled here in the top, Parametric Constraints. And it's part of our IED class and part of 8.2 Part 1. And what it is this. I think the best way is for me to just kind of show you and then kind of talk about it as I'm doing it. How do I exit into the...
Welcome back to Pope Does PLC.
You don't want to hear that guy talking. Alright, so here we go. How do we do it? So what is it? First off, let me just start by clicking on a plane to draw. And parametric constraints is a constraint. First, what is a constraint, right? You guys should already know, but, you know, I never really think I gave the definition. I talked about them all the time, but we never, defined it. So a constraint is just something that the thing your drawing has to do. For example, I think I already have a constraint by clicking this corner right here. When I started there, I've kind of built in a constraint saying that this drawing always has to start here. Here's another constraint. I'm going to put one right here. I said that this has to be, let's say, 4 inches wide. Okay. I'm going to put another constraint right here. So, by the way, let's look at this right here. Do you guys see that D? Oops. If I move, it's going to go away. Look at that. It says D1, and it says it's 4 inches. D1. That's dimension 1, okay? We're going to need to know that. So that's one constraint. Now watch this. I'm going to say from here to here has to be D1. And I'm going to say divided by 2. So this right here is now a parametric constraint. I said that this is always half of this. Because if you look at this, when I click on it, it says it's D1, that's dimension 1. This right here, if I click on it, is dimension 1 divided by 2. So right now it's 2 inches. That's because it's half of that one. I divided by 2. And that's important for constraints. There's other constraints. I'll show you those in a minute. So I'm going to push finish, and I'm just going to extrude this thing real quick. Let's just extrude this. It doesn't really matter which direction because this is not super important. I'm going to go... I can go ½ an inch, correct? I can go 0.5 inches, and then I forgot you can parametric constraint this as well. So there we go. It's a ½ an inch. But what if I always want this to be 1/8 of that dimension 1? So I could say D1, and I'm going to say divided by 8, which is a ½ inch right now, because remember it was 4 inches, and divide that by 8, that becomes a ½ an inch. So there we go. Put OK. So I even parametrically constrained the extrusion. Okay, now I'm going to start a new sketch, and I'm going to go to this face, and I'm going to make a hole, and I'm just going to make, let's make 4 holes. Okay, now do you guys see that dotted line right here? I don't know if you can see it. So I'm purposely not going to put it there because I'm going to make that constraint myself. Okay, so there we go. Now, these are not lined up very well, right? They were going to be if I would have left that dotted line, but I need to constrain them in a different way. So let's constrain them, and I think we're going to do this vertical right here. So I'm going to click this button right here, the center of this circle and the center of this circle. And what that says is they're now constrained to that line. All right, so that they, in other words, they both have to be like on the same horizontal line. Now I can give some constraints like, where is this right here? That's a ½ inch away. Okay, so let's parametrically constrain it. D1 divided by 8. That means it's always taking this width. Remember, this is D1, how wide this is, and dividing that by 8, and then that's how far away that's going to be. How far apart are these? 2 inches. I'm going to actually make this D1 divided by 4. Oops, that's not what I meant. Divided by 2. Okay, and then I'm going to always make this distance from here to here. And here's one more thing I want you guys to learn. Notice that these are still blue, right? Look at the color of my circles. They're blue. What does that mean? That means they're still able to move. They're not fully constrained. Fully constrained means you cannot move them anymore. So watch this. I'm going to drag them around. Oh, I can't move them up and down. It's not letting me. And do you know why? Because I already said how far away it has to be. I can't move this one closer to that one. Why? Because I said how far apart they are. But they do move left and right. Why? I never said where they had to be this way. So let's do that. Let's see if that fully constrains it. Click the center, click here. That's not what I meant to do. I don't know why I didn't do that. Click this wall. Click the center of that dot. There we go. That's what I wanted. And it's almost a ½ inch away, and that's what I want. So I'm going to put actually D1, that's that first dimension, divided by 8. There we go. That's not centered. I'm going to do it divided by 4, and I think that will center it. There we go. Yeah, so that's fully centered. So now everything is parametrically constrained. And are these still blue? They are. And there's a very good reason why. The reason being is, watch this. Oops, sorry. I never said how big they were. So they can still change, right? There's still stuff to change. So let's fix that. Let's make this 0.5. And I'm not going to parametrically constrain this. I want to explain this why in a second. I'm going to make this a ½ inch wide and 0.5 inches wide. There we go. Now notice they turned black. Now they are fully constrained. I'm going to escape out of all my tools, and I cannot do anything to them. They want to. Oh, I moved the dimension around. You can move these, but remember that's not part of the drawing. So I can't move anything around now. So this thing is called fully constrained. Okay, and that's what you always want in your drawings. You don't want colors. I mean, it'll still work if you don't do it, but that just means there's something you weren't looking at and you didn't care about. And usually you should care about pretty much everything in your drawing and where everything is. It's very important. So fully constraining is a very good tool and it's something you should do. And I also taught you about parametric constraining. Finish my drawing, right? And I'm done. Oh, no, I gotta make a hole, right? So let's extrude these. Extrude, extrude. I don't want to go that direction, so I'm gonna go negative. And I'm going to go negative. And remember, I can't go 0.5. I could do that, and that cuts all the way through, but it's always going to go a ½ inch deep. I want it to always cut all the way through. So I'm going to go cut D1 divided by, and I think it was 8. And that was that's how thick we make that. So that way they cut always through. So there we go. They're always cut through. And everything's good. Now I want to show you something. I'm going to go to the first sketch right here. This is how you find them on Fusion. You go over here and this is your history. That's my first sketch. Then I extruded. Then I drew again the circles. Then I extruded. You see the 4 things? So I'm just going to right click here and you can say edit sketch. I think you could just always double click that as well. Yeah, you can. So I'm going to change this to 8 inches, okay? And I'm going to finish sketch and look what happens. Everything changed. Everything. But it stayed the way I wanted. Now look at these holes. They look smaller. They're not. They're still ½ inches. They did not grow because I never parametrically constrained them to the original dimension. I said they're a ½ inch wide. I never said they're D1 divided by something or times something or anything like that. They are always a ½ inch. And maybe that's because I have certain screws that go in there and they're ½ inch screws. And when this thing gets a little bit bigger, I need those screws to fit. I don't need big old holes where the screws are loose. So that's super important. Sometimes you want to parametrically constrain, like this ratio to this ratio and the thickness ratio. Sometimes you don't. Okay, so sometimes you parametrically constrain and sometimes you don't. And that's it. Hopefully you learned something. Take the quiz. Let's see what you learned. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.